Hi, my name is Nicholas, and at 44 years old, I work as a mid-level project manager in a bustling software firm downtown, where the days blend into a rhythm of meetings, deadlines, and the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. I've been married to Molly for 18 years, a union that began with the spark of young love in our mid-20s, and together we've built a life around our two teenage children, a cozy suburban home with its creaking wooden floors and the perpetual scent of fresh laundry from the dryer in the basement. Our family feels like a well-oiled machine most days, with school runs, weekend barbecues in the backyard where the grill smoke mingles with the earthy aroma of freshly mowed grass, and evenings spent in the living room under the warm glow of the antique lamp that Molly inherited from her grandmother. It started on a crisp autumn evening, the kind where the air carries the sharp tang of fallen leaves crunching underfoot and the distant rumble of traffic fades into a soothing background murmur. When I returned home from work earlier than usual, my briefcase heavy in my hand and my shoulders slumped from the weight of another endless conference call. As I pushed open the front door, the familiar scent of Molly's chamomile tea wafted from the kitchen, mixed with the subtle undercurrent of her favorite lavender hand lotion that always lingered on her skin after she washed the dishes. But what hit me like a sudden gust of cold wind was the sight of her standing by the kitchen island, her phone clutched tightly in her manicured fingers, her face illuminated by the screen's blue glow in the dimming twilight that filtered through the lace. Curtains! She startled at my entrance, her hazel eyes widening for a fraction of a second before she composed herself with a quick smile that didn't quite reach the corners of her mouth, her posture shifting ever so slightly as she slipped the phone into the pocket of her cardigan, the fabric rustling softly against her jeans. I remember pausing in the doorway, the cool doorknob still in my grasp, feeling a faint prick of unease ripple through my chest like the first drop of rain on a still pond, but I brushed it aside, attributing it to the fatigue etched into my bones from the day's demands. "Hey, love," I said, my voice steady as I set down my briefcase on the entryway table cluttered with keys, mail, and a half-forgotten vase of wilting daisies from last week's grocery run, where we'd argued mildly over organic produce versus the cheaper alternatives. Molly turned fully toward me then, her movements fluid but deliberate, like someone rehearsing a familiar role, and she announced with a casual lilt that masked something deeper. "Oh, you're home early. I was just about to text you. I'm heading out tonight for a book club meeting with Jocelyn and a few others from the neighborhood group. It's at that little cafe downtown, the one with the exposed brick walls and the aroma of fresh espresso that clings to your clothes afterward." Her words hung in the air, accompanied by the soft tick of the wall clock in the hallway, and I nodded, forcing a supportive grin while inwardly noting how her fingers drummed lightly on the countertop, a habit she only displayed when her mind was elsewhere, overwhelmed by the invisible burdens she carried. As she gathered her things, her oversized purse with its jangling keys, a light scarf draped over her shoulders against the evening chill that seeped through the windows, I couldn't shake the subtle disconnect, the way her laughter at my joke about traffic felt a beat too delayed, echoing hollowly in the spacious kitchen with its granite surfaces reflecting the overhead lights like polished mirrors. Our marriage had always been my anchor, a testament to loyalty and commitment amidst the chaos of raising kids and juggling careers. But lately, an emotional burnout had crept in, manifesting in quiet dinners where conversations dwindled to logistics about bills and schedules, her sighs heavier as she stared out the window at the neighbor's porch lights flickering on. I watched her apply a fresh layer of lip gloss in the hallway mirror, the tube clicking shut with finality, and told myself it was nothing, just the natural ebb of a long-term relationship. Yet as she kissed my cheek, her lips cool and fleeting, leaving a faint trace of vanilla scent, I felt a nagging whisper in my mind, questioning why she hadn't mentioned this outing earlier, why her eyes darted away when I asked about the book they were discussing. The door closed behind her with a soft thud, the lock engaging automatically, and I stood there in the sudden silence of the house, the refrigerator humming lowly in the background, my heart tightening with an inexplicable sense of foreboding, as if the normal rhythm of our life had just been disrupted by an unseen crack. This moment marks the initial fracture in Nicholas's trust, a subtle emotional shock that disrupts the complacency of long-term marriage. Psychologically, it illustrates the onset of cognitive dissonance, whereas loyal commitment clashes with intuitive red flags like Molly's delayed laughter and evasive glances. The first warning sign was already here, manifesting in sensory details, the cool kiss, vanilla scent, that heighten his anxiety. Many people choose to remain silent at this point, and in vain, opting for denial to preserve the illusion of stability. This denial stems from attachment theory, where fear of abandonment leads to rationalizing behaviors, ignoring emotional disconnection as mere burnout. Interpersonally, it highlights how unaddressed overwhelm in one partner can erode mutual vulnerability, setting the stage for betrayal. As Nicholas reflects on past vibrancy versus current reserve, it underscores the theme of gradual relational decay, where small inconsistencies accumulate, fostering suspicion without immediate confrontation. Emotionally, his foreboding signals the subconscious processing of betrayal cues, a protective mechanism that, if heeded earlier, might mitigate deeper pain. Ultimately, this event reveals the fragility of trust built over 18 years, vulnerable to unspoken burdens. That night, as I prepared a simple dinner for the kids, chopping vegetables on the worn cutting board, the knife's rhythmic thump against the wood syncing with my thoughts, I replayed her departure in my mind, noting the way she'd hesitated at the door, her hand lingering on the frame as if debating something unspoken. The children, oblivious, chattered about their day over plates of steaming pasta, the sauce's tomatoey aroma filling the room. But my appetite waned, replaced by a subtle anxiety that coiled in my stomach like undigested worry. Later, lying in bed with the sheets cool against my skin, the moonlight slanting through the blinds in silvery stripes across the carpet, I waited for her return, the clock's red digits glowing mockingly as hours ticked by, and though she texted once, a brief, running late, fun discussion, I couldn't ignore the emotional disconnection that had been building. Her once vibrant presence now shadowed by an overwhelming fatigue that left her retreating into herself. Sleep evaded me, my mind wandering to memories of our early years, picnics in the park where her laughter bubbled freely, contrasting sharply with the reserved woman she'd become, and I wondered if this was just burnout or something more insidious lurking beneath the surface of our shared life. The days following Molly's book club outing unfolded with a deceptive normalcy. The morning sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows onto the breakfast table cluttered with cereal bowls and half-read newspapers, their inky scent mingling with the rich brew of coffee percolating in the machine. But beneath it all, a growing undercurrent of disconnection tugged at me like an invisible thread unraveling a sweater. I found myself observing her more closely during our routines, noting how she lingered over her phone during breakfast, her thumbs scrolling absently while our son recounted his soccer practice. Her response is coming a second too late, laced with a distracted nod that made her dark hair fall slightly over her forehead. Her emotional overwhelm, which I'd always attributed to the demands of her part-time job as a graphic designer and the endless cycle of household chores, seemed amplified now, her sighs deeper as she folded laundry in the living room, the fabric snapping crisply in the air heavy with the detergent's floral notes, her eyes glazing over as if lost in a distant thought. One afternoon, as I worked from home in my study, the room enveloped in the soft whir of my computer fan and the faint patter of rain against the window panes that blurred the view of our leaf-strewn backyard, I overheard her on a phone call in the adjacent hallway, her voice hushed and urgent, punctuated by pauses where she listened intently, her free hand twisting the hem of her sweater in a gesture of quiet agitation. "No, not tonight. I can't, it's too risky," she murmured, the words slicing through the air like a whispered confession. And when she ended the call abruptly upon noticing my shadow in the doorway, her cheeks flushed a subtle pink under the hallway's warm bulb light, she offered a quick explanation about a work deadline, her smile tight and unconvincing, her fingers trembling slightly as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Internally, a storm brewed within me. loyalty clashing with an emerging suspicion, my heart pounding with a mix of hope that it was nothing and worry that our bond was fraying beyond repair. The emotional burnout we both felt now manifesting as a chasm I couldn't bridge alone. Evenings brought more small evidences, like the time she returned from a supposed grocery run, her arms laden with bags crinkling with produce, the scent of fresh bread and citrus filling the entryway. But her makeup was freshly reapplied, her lips a shade brighter than when she'd left, and a faint, unfamiliar cologne clung to her collar, woody and masculine, unlike my own citrus-based aftershave sitting on the bathroom shelf. I confronted her gently over dinner, the clink of forks against plates echoing in the dining room lit by the chandelier's soft glow, asking about her day with feigned casualness. But her answers were evasive, her gaze dropping to her plate, where she pushed peas around with her fork, her posture rigid as if bracing against an unseen force. "Just busy, Nick," she said, her voice carrying a weary edge. And in that moment, frustration welled up in me, mingling with a fear that gnawed at my insides like a persistent ache, my mind racing through justifications. Perhaps she was planning a surprise or dealing with stress from her overwhelmed state. But the doubts accumulated, stacking like unread emails in my inbox. As weeks passed, the suspicion grew through these micro-observations. A late-night text notification lighting up her phone on the nightstand. The screen's glow casting eerie shadows on the bedroom walls textured with faint cracks from years of settling. And when I glanced over, pretending to adjust the pillow, I caught a glimpse of a heart emoji before she snatched it away, her breath catching audibly in the quiet room. My internal turmoil intensified, swinging from hope during moments of affection, like when she rested her head on my shoulder during a movie, her warmth seeping through my shirt, to deep-seated anger at the thought of betrayal, my pulse quickening as I lay awake, the ceiling fan's blades slicing the air above with a monotonous whoosh. Here, Nicholas's growing suspicion exemplifies the psychological cycle of hope and despair and infidelity detection, rooted in intermittent reinforcement, where fleeting affections sustain denial. A typical mistake is to think that this is just a phase, attributing Molly's secrecy to overwhelm rather than deliberate deception, which prolongs emotional suffering. Thematically, it explores trust erosion through micro-observations, texts, scents that trigger hypervigilance, a stress response elevating cortisol levels and impairing rational judgment. Interpersonally, evasive answers and nervous gestures reflect Molly's guilt projection, creating a cat-and-mouse dynamic that isolates Nicholas, amplifying his frustration and fear. This phase underscores consequences of unaddressed burnout. Her retreat into external validation fractures their bond, while his internal swings reveal attachment insecurity, oscillating between secure memories and anxious projections. Personal growth begins subtly as he confides in a colleague, seeking external validation to counter isolation. Emotionally, the racing pulse and insomnia signify autonomic arousal, a survival instinct alerting to relational threat. Overall, this buildup illustrates how denial serves as a short-term buffer but ultimately intensifies betrayal's impact, urging early communication to prevent escalation. I even confided vaguely in a colleague during lunch at the office cafeteria, the aroma of grilled sandwiches and coffee surrounding us. But his sympathetic nod only amplified my isolation, leaving me to navigate this emotional labyrinth alone, where every furtive glance from Molly, every delayed response, fueled the fire of distrust burning steadily within. The tension peaked one evening when she announced another outing, this time a yoga class with Daisy, a friend from work, her bag slung over her shoulder with the zipper's metallic rasp echoing in the foyer. And as she left, waving goodbye with a hand that seemed to linger in the air a moment too long, I felt a profound sense of loss, the house suddenly emptier, the silence oppressive like a heavy blanket. Alone, I paced the living room, my footsteps muffled on the rug woven with patterns from our early marriage travels, my mind a whirlwind of scenarios, each more painful than the last, until I resolved to confront the growing void. Though fear held me back, whispering that ignorance might preserve what little remained of our committed life. Driven by the relentless pull of suspicion, I began my quiet investigation in the quiet hours when the house slept, the moonlight filtering through the curtains in pale shafts that danced across the hardwood floors, casting long shadows that mirrored the doubts elongating in my mind. One night, after Molly had drifted off beside me, her breathing steady and deep under the comforter that smelled faintly of her shampoo, jasmine and vanilla intertwined, I slipped out of bed, my bare feet cold against the floorboards that creaked softly under my weight, and made my way to the dresser where her phone charged, the cord snaking like a lifeline across the polished wood surface dotted with her jewelry. My hands trembled as I picked it up, the device's cool glass screen reflecting my strained face in the dim glow, and with a racing heart that thudded audibly in the silence, I entered her passcode, our anniversary date, a remnant of trust, now feeling ironic, and scrolled through her messages, the soft swipe of my finger the only sound amid the distant hum of the neighborhood outside. What I found were fragments, not outright confessions, but enough to stoke the flames. Text from an unsaved number, laced with familiarity, arranging coffee breaks that coincided with her unexplained absences, one message reading, "Can't wait to see you again, missed your smile," accompanied by a winking emoji that twisted my gut like a knife. I sat there on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping under me, inhaling the room's stale air heavy with the residue of our shared sleep, my mind reeling between moral qualms. Was this invasion justified? And a surging determination to uncover the truth, the emotional burnout of our marriage now revealed as a smokescreen for something deeper. Setbacks came swiftly. The next day, she noticed her phone's history cleared accidentally by my fumbling, her brow furrowing in the kitchen light as she poured coffee, the steam rising in lazy curls, and she asked casually if I'd seen it, her eyes searching mine with a flicker of nervousness that she masked with a sip from her mug. I pressed on, observing her from afar during a supposed work errand, parking my car down the street from the cafe. She mentioned, the engine idling with a low rumble while rain pattered on the windshield, blurring the view like my muddled thoughts. Through the fog glass, I saw her inside, laughing with a man I didn't recognize, his hand brushing hers across the table cluttered with half-empty cups, their body language intimate. Leaned in postures, shared glances that lingered too long, and though a red herring emerged when she later explained him as a client, her voice steady but her fingers twisting her wedding ring absent-mindedly, the seed of doubt had rooted deeply. Internally, I grappled with waves of pain and anger, my breath shallow as I drove home, the wipers swishing rhythmically, wiping away the rain but not the ache in my chest, questioning if our 18 years could crumble so easily under her overwhelmed facade. The turning point came during a joint therapy session we'd scheduled to address our emotional disconnection. The therapist's office a serene space with soft beige walls, potted plants exhaling a fresh, green scent, and chairs arranged in a circle under recessed lighting that cast gentle shadows. As we sat there, Molly's legs crossed tightly, her hands clasped in her lap with knuckles whitening. The therapist prompted us to share openly, and in a moment of vulnerability, or perhaps slippage, she revealed fragments of her inner world, admitting to seeking emotional support outside our marriage, her voice cracking like thin ice underfoot, her eyes welling with tears that glistened in the room's warm ambience. The revelation hit me like a physical blow, my body tensing, the chair's fabric rough against my palms as I gripped the arms, the air suddenly thick with unspoken accusations, and though she backpedaled, attributing it to burnout, the puzzle pieces aligned in my mind, confirming the affair through her own words. The therapy session revelation represents a pivotal moment of truth, shattering denial and forcing Nicholas to confront betrayal head-on, a psychological breakthrough akin to the Kubler-Ross stages transitioning from denial to anger. This event emphasizes the consequences of betrayal, where Molly's admission of seeking emotional support exposes the interpersonal betrayal of vows, eroding the foundation of their 18-year marriage. The first warning sign was already here in her cracking voice and whitening knuckles. body language betraying suppressed guilt. Many people choose to remain silent at this point, and in vain, fearing relational collapse. But Nicholas's determination signals emerging resilience. Thematically, it highlights moral dilemmas in investigation, privacy invasion versus self-protection, reflecting ethical conflicts in trust violation. Emotionally, the physical blow sensation indicates somatic experiencing of trauma, with tension manifesting unresolved grief. Interpersonally, her backpedaling attempts gaslighting, a manipulative tactic to deflect accountability, further damaging trust. Personal growth emerges in his alignment of evidence, fostering empowerment through clarity. This key event underscores how therapy, intended for healing, can unveil hidden fractures, prompting necessary boundaries and illustrating betrayal's ripple effects on self-esteem and relational dynamics. We left the session in tense silence. The car ride home filled with the engine's hum and the occasional sigh from her profile illuminated by passing streetlights that flickered like erratic heartbeats. That night, alone in my study with the desk lamp's yellow pool highlighting scattered notes, I jotted dates, inconsistencies. The moral dilemma weighed heavy, but determination solidified, propelling me toward confrontation. The phone's dim screen in my hand, now a beacon of undeniable truth amidst the encroaching darkness. The confrontation unfolded on a stormy evening. The sky outside our windows, a brooding gray canvas, streaked with lightning that illuminated the living room in stark flashes, thunder rumbling like distant accusations while rain lashed against the panes, creating rivulets that distorted the view of our once idyllic garden, now sodden and chaotic. I had waited until the children were asleep upstairs, their doors closed with faint strips of light escaping underneath. The house otherwise quiet save for the grandfather clock's steady tick in the hallway, its pendulum swinging metronomically as if counting down to this inevitable moment. Molly sat on the couch, her posture slumped under the throw blanket patterned with faded florals, sipping herbal tea from a mug that steamed gently, the chamomile scent clashing with the ozone tang seeping in from the storm. When I finally voiced the words that had been festering, my voice steady but laced with the tremor of suppressed emotion. Molly, we need to talk about what's really going on, about the texts, the meetings, the emotional support you've been seeking elsewhere. Her reaction was immediate, her mug pausing midway to her lips, her hazel eyes widening in the lamp's soft glow that cast elongated shadows across her face, highlighting the fine lines of exhaustion etched around her mouth from years of emotional overwhelm. "What are you talking about, Nick?" she replied, her tone a mix of defensiveness and feigned confusion, setting the mug down on the coffee table with a clink that echoed sharply, her hands then folding in her lap, fingers interlacing tightly, as if to anchor herself. I paced slowly before her, my footsteps muffled on the rug, feeling the carpet's fibers yield under my socks, my heart pounding with a rage that bubbled up from deep within, tempered by the shock of her denial, and I laid out the evidence. The therapy revelation, the observed cafe meeting, the messages I'd glimpsed. My words measured, punctuated by pauses where the thunder filled the gaps, her face paling gradually, lips pressing into a thin line. As accusations flew, tears streamed down her cheeks, glistening trails that she wiped away with the back of her hand, her body language shifting from rigid denial to slumped resignation, her shoulders heaving with quiet sobs that broke the room's tension like fragile glass. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she admitted finally, her voice breaking, revealing the affair with Eric, a colleague from her design firm, someone she'd turned to amid our burnout, his presence offering the validation she felt missing from me. The twist came when she confessed it started innocently as shared lunches, but evolved into stolen evenings, a secret that now shattered the illusion of our life. I stood frozen, the rain's relentless drum on the roof mirroring my internal turmoil, anger surging hot through my veins while despair cooled it, my fists clenching at my sides, nails digging into palms as I struggled to maintain composure, the air thick with the scent of wet earth infiltrating through a cracked window. The climax intensified when the doorbell rang unexpectedly, a sharp peal cutting through the storm. And there stood Eric on the porch, drenched in rain, his coat slick and hair plastered to his forehead, his face a mask of concern mixed with guilt under the porch light's harsh beam. He'd come uninvited, worried by her unanswered texts, adding a layer of chaos, and Molly gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. I invited him in with a controlled calm that belied my inner storm, the door creaking shut behind him, water dripping from his shoes onto the entry mat, and the three of us faced off in the living room. Tensions electric like the lightning outside, words exchanged in heated bursts, accusations from me, excuses from her, his attempts at apology, faltering under my glare. Through it all, I realized my power lay in choice, not reaction. The confrontation stripping away illusions, leaving raw emotions exposed in the flickering light. The confrontation climax, amplified by Eric's unexpected arrival, embodies the emotional catharsis of betrayal exposure, transitioning Nicholas from victimhood to agency amid themes of accountability and disillusionment. Psychologically, it captures the fight-or-flight response in his controlled calm versus Molly's panic, highlighting gender-typical coping. His composure masks inner rage, while her tears and excuses reflect defensive vulnerability. A typical mistake is to think that this is just a phase, minimizing the affair's depth, but the twist of Eric's presence forces undeniable reality, dismantling denial. Consequences of betrayal manifest interpersonally through heated dialogue and body language, clenched fists, heaving shoulders, revealing power imbalances in the triad. Emotionally, swings from rage to resolve signify processing trauma, with thunder mirroring internal storm. Personal growth is evident in Nicholas's realization of control, a cognitive reframing that empowers detachment from manipulation. This event illustrates how confrontations, though painful, facilitate clarity, preventing prolonged toxicity. Thematically, it explores forgiveness versus separation, emphasizing that true healing requires acknowledging betrayal's irreversible harm to trust, paving the way for individual autonomy. In the aftermath of that stormy revelation, the house felt like a shell of its former self, the walls echoing with unspoken regrets as morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a muted glow on the disarray of scattered cushions and cold tea mugs from the night before, the air still heavy with the faint metallic scent of rain-soaked earth. Molly and I navigated the immediate fallout with a fragile truce, our conversations clipped and functional, focused on the children who sensed the shift. Our daughter's quizzical glances over breakfast, her spoon stirring cereal absent-mindedly in the bowl, the milk swirling like our turbulent emotions. While legal whispers began, consultations with a divorce attorney in a sterile office downtown, with a scent of polished wood and coffee underscored discussions of asset division and custody. Each were a step toward untangling our 18 years. Her reaction oscillated between remorseful tears, her eyes red-rimmed as she packed a suitcase in the bedroom, the zipper's rasp of finality, and defensive justifications, blaming our emotional burnout for pushing her into Eric's arms, her voice trembling yet resolute. Internally, I wrestled with a maelstrom of conflicts, waves of betrayal that crashed like the previous night's thunder, mingled with moral dilemmas about forgiveness versus self-preservation. My nights spent staring at the ceiling, the fan's blades cutting the air in endless circles, mirroring my looping thoughts until clarity emerged. I couldn't remain in a union built on eroded trust. Small victories punctuated the pain, like reclaiming the study as my sanctuary, rearranging books on the shelves with deliberate hands, the pages' musty aroma grounding me, while setbacks loomed in shared family events, awkward silences at dinner where forks scraped plates, the tension palpable like an uninvited guest. Dialogue was sparse but potent. One evening, as we sat on opposite ends of the couch, the television's murmur a buffer, I stated firmly, "This ends here, Molly. We separate mutually for our sake and the kids," my voice steady, eliciting her nod, a quiet acceptance that brought relief washing over me like a cool breeze. As decision solidified, I felt a lightness return, muscles relaxing after weeks of taut vigilance, the physical sensation of my heart steadying its frantic rhythm, symbolizing the closing of one chapter as I signed papers in the attorney's office. The pen scratch on paper, a liberating sound. Hints of freedom emerged in solitary walks through the neighborhood, leaves crunching underfoot in the crisp air, my breaths deeper, unburdened by the weight of suspicion, preparing me for the resolution ahead with a newfound confidence that whispered of personal victory amid the ruins. In the aftermath, Nicholas's decision for mutual separation signifies a profound shift towards self-preservation, embodying themes of resilience and post-betrayal growth amid the consequences of eroded trust. Psychologically, his internal conflicts, moral dilemmas over forgiveness, reflect the ambivalent stage of grief, where relief battles lingering attachment, ultimately resolving in empowerment. The first warning sign was already here in small victories like reclaiming spaces, symbolizing reclaiming identity lost in marital burnout. Many people choose to remain silent at this point, and in vain, clinging to familiarity, but his firm statement fosters boundaries, mitigating codependency. Interpersonally, impacts on family. Children's quizzical glances highlight betrayal's collateral damage, necessitating co-parenting to preserve stability. Emotionally, physical sensations of relaxing muscles and calming heart denote recovery from hyperarousal, a somatic release enabling clarity. Personal growth thrives in new habits, transforming pain into purpose, as therapy aids unpacking layers. This phase underscores betrayal's long-term effects, financial and legal strains, yet it catalyzes independence, illustrating how ending toxic bonds liberates potential, turning ruins into foundations for renewed self-worth. With the mutual separation formalized through quiet court proceedings in an echoing chamber where the judge's gavel fell like a period at the end of our marital sentence, I stepped into a new existence, the house now mine alone after Molly moved to a nearby apartment. The rooms echoing with a solitude that felt both empty and expansive, sunlight pouring through cleaned windows onto freshly vacuumed floors, the scent of lemon polish replacing the stale air of conflict. I established clear boundaries, co-parenting schedules typed out on shared calendars, our interactions polite and distant during handoffs, the children's laughter a bridge between us, their resilience a balm as they adapted, sharing stories over weekend visits in parks where birdsong filled the air and the grass tickled my bare feet during picnics. New habits took root. Morning runs along fog-shrouded paths, the rhythmic pound of sneakers on pavement syncing with my steady breaths, sweat cooling on my skin as endorphins brought clarity. Evenings devoted to hobbies like woodworking in the garage, the sawzbuzz, and wood shaving's earthy aroma, crafting tangible progress from raw materials. Empowerment bloomed gradually, confidence rebuilding through therapy sessions where I unpacked the betrayal's layers, the therapist's voice soothing in the plant-filled room, helping me recognize how emotional disconnection had festered unchecked, teaching me to prioritize self-worth over salvaging a fractured bond. Reflections came in quiet moments, like sipping coffee on the porch at dawn, the mug's warmth seeping into my hands as steam rose in lazy spirals, pondering lessons learned, the fragility of trust, the importance of addressing burnout before it devours, and the strength in choosing freedom over familiarity. No lingering anger tainted this growth. Instead, a calm wisdom settled, a slight hope flickering for future connections built on honesty, the world outside vibrant with possibilities. New friends at community classes, their conversations flowing easily under cafe lights, the aroma of fresh pastries mingling with laughter. In the end, this ordeal forged a deeper self-understanding, transforming pain into empowerment, leaving me with a profound sense of closure and catharsis, ready to embrace life's next chapter with open arms and an unburdened heart. Overall, Nicholas's journey from loyal commitment to empowered separation encapsulates the psychological arc of infidelity recovery, weaving themes of trust fragility, denial's peril, betrayal's devastating consequences, and triumphant personal growth. Key events reveal how emotional disconnection, if unaddressed, breeds secrecy and affairs, eroding interpersonal bonds over time. Denial, evident in initial rationalizations, prolongs suffering, while confrontation and evidence gathering force accountability, highlighting moral and emotional dilemmas. Consequences extend beyond the couple, affecting family dynamics and self-esteem, yet they catalyze resilience. Nicholas's reflections in therapy and new habits signify post-traumatic growth, reframing betrayal as a catalyst for autonomy and wisdom. This narrative imparts lessons. Early recognition of warning signs prevents escalation. Communication combats burnout, and choosing freedom over illusion fosters healing. Ultimately, it offers catharsis, affirming that while betrayal shatters, it can forge stronger individuals, emphasizing hope in self-reliance and relational honesty for future connections.